The Battery Buzz podcast is brought to you by H.B. Fuller Company. H.B. Fuller is one of the battery industry's leading suppliers of adhesive, encapsulant, coatings, and sealants for the EV and battery industry. Hello, and welcome to Battery Buzz, the show for battery professionals by battery professionals, keeping you connected to what's new with batteries and the people that help build them. Your battery specialist hosts, myself, Elizabeth Canaz, and Jeraine Mara Salvaraj, are back for our next episode. Now let's get started. Thank you for joining us. This week, we're welcoming our special guest, Wim Dexters with BD Tronic. We're looking forward to our discussion with Wim to learn more about what BD Tronic equipment solutions can provide.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome, Wim. So a little bit about Wim before we get started. So Wim was born in Belgium, where he completed his PhD in physics at Hasselt University. In 2015, he started his career in project engineering for BD Tronic in Germany. And due to his background in physics, he first started kind of working in the plasma treatment products, but transitioned to working on international projects, which led him to connect with US and Mexican colleagues. And that then kind of further developed in 2019 as BD Tronic grew. Wim moved to Oklahoma, where BD Tronic US is located to help grow that team. And so as he built the team in the US, he took on more responsibility to manage the company, which ultimately led to his current role as president for BD Tronic North America in 2024. So an amazing career progression. And then on top of that, even better, a little fun fact about Wim, about a month ago, you welcomed your second son. So congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
It might explain why I'm a little bit tired at the moment, but that's
So how old is your first son?
he's 4 years old right now, so it's a 4-year difference between the two.
And how is he taking on an extra person getting attention?
It takes some getting used to, but he's very, very sweet towards his little brother at the moment still.
Oh.
Mostly because the little brother doesn't do much. I'm assuming that in the future that might change as he starts using toys and things like that. But for now, he's very, very sweet towards his little brother. So,
Well, that's
Very
awesome.
sweet. That's a perfect age gap, I think. They're going to grow so close together.
yeah.
So how is Belgium compared to Oklahoma? Very similar.
That's it's a good question. So there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of differences. So we lived in an area that was similar to where we live now in Tulsa. It's a nice city. You have a lot of things you can do around here. The big thing that we find is different is the way you can communicate to people. It's much more open, where in Belgium people are much more closed. And the big difference for us is the weather, because let's say 90% of the time in Belgium you'll find gray and rainy or windy weather, whereas here even now we have blue skies and the sun out. So
Okay.
Just a fun time overall here.
Well, that's
Awesome.
great. I'm glad it's not too. It's a better weather situation at least. So that's good to hear. So Wim, so can you tell us a little bit about BD Tronics and your equipment supplier, but what you kind of do in the battery space, and what you do to help people achieve their goals?
Sure. So BD Tronic it's a machine building company, really. It's headquartered in Germany, but we have offices all around the world. And our focus really is not on just machine building, but we focus on 4 core technologies. So a big part of that is, of course, the dispensing section of it, dispensing all kinds of materials, 2 components, 1 component materials, polyurethanes, acrylics, typically very difficult to handle materials that go into high volume production systems. The other parts of that are plasma treatment, which comes hand in hand with that in order to make sure that adhesives adhere well to the substrates you want to glue them to. And then additionally, there's heat staking or hot riveting, depending on where you're from, which is a plastic riveting technology, a different fastening method, basically, that especially in the battery world is now coming into play as you want to go to something that is made out of plastic because it's lighter. So more and more systems can be riveted together rather than screwed together using metal. The last technology isn't necessarily related to batteries, but it is related to electric vehicles, is the impregnation or varnishing of electric motors. So that, in a few words, is the technologies that we do and what BD Tronic brings to the table. And we build those types of systems all around the world, really. So we have manufacturing sites in Germany, which is our headquarters. We have one in Italy. And then where I'm located, here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we build all the systems that ultimately go in production in North America. That covers that mostly is Canada, US, as well as Mexico. And then we also support and service all our customers from this location.
Yeah, so I was looking at your website and I did not realize you guys did plasma treatment systems. So that was something that I wasn't aware of. So you guys are more than an equipment supplier, actually a specialized application, with the heat staking and the plasma treatment, and then what was the other one? The fusing of the to replace the metal.
Yeah, the heat staking. Yeah.
Heat staking. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So, what do you like enjoy about, what you do and what BD Tronic supplies?
So that's the fact that we were able to bring all these technologies together is what makes it really interesting. I mean, historically, we've brought the dispensing sections where we grew up in, and that's also where we grew up in the past 15 years is the world of dispensing, included those other technologies and grew with the automotive space, because the automotive, especially automotive electronics, is really the world that made BD Tronic what it is now. It makes for a large variety of different things that we're able to do and work on. You meet a lot of interesting people that way, and really see what the automotive world is developing next, because we often see components, parts, and developments that are happening long before the public sees them actually come to fruition. And that, to me, is very interesting to see how that all works. And then coming from the engineering side, as I say, also a bit of a scientist, it's fun to see how this whole space develops, and just overall brings new technologies to the surface that can help manufacture parts at high volume and high quality.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And it's being in this industry that kind of like we get connected for that very reason, right? Kind of new technologies in this emerging space, and how do we get them to work together? So adhesive to equipment supplier, these kind of connections are probably the most fun, I'd say, to work with, because you're both trying to solve the same problem together. It's just on opposite sides and meeting in the middle.
Yeah, and I would say I agree with you on the seeing the new technologies come before everybody else. I always allude that it's like we get to look behind the curtain and see what everybody's doing, and it's interesting how diverse it is. You would think it was very standardized, but it's very diverse, and the ideas are diverse, and so are the challenges that we need to to fix or come up with solutions for. So yeah, it's definitely, that's what I enjoy about it. I think Jermaine feels the same way about that.
Yeah, I always tell people when they ask, it's like every day is how things are made, like those old episodes. It's like that's my life. And it makes people so jealous. I'm like, yeah. That's right.
You get to see production systems from small scale one person EV motorcycles to complete car manufacturing plants and everything in between. And every day is something new. Even like one project works with cylindrical cells, the next person wants to work with pouch cells, and the challenges are always new, and there's always something different to discover and learn, and that makes it just interesting and challenging at the same time.
So do you specifically focus on just automotive? Because I know that we do things with, in other spaces like energy storage and drones and I mean all kinds of different things.
So I want to say 80% of what we do is in the automotive space.
Okay.
A lot of that is in the electronics world. But of course, wherever high quality equipment is needed is where we go. So we also do work in medical fields, but also energy storage, um, general electronics, a little bit everywhere where, let's say, you need high volume production that has a high quality, and you need equipment that can get you reproducible results where traceability is a need. So it spans a large range, but because of those parameters, if you put all of them together, often you end up in the automotive world because that's where all of it really clicks.
Yeah, you mentioned that traceability and that repeatability. We see that a lot too, right? With, the processes that we're involved in. It's so important for especially automotive and electronics to have processes in which it's dependable and reliable. And there's so many, like, at least on the adhesive side, post systems in place to I guess qualify this and check that each part is made. So that whole I'm seeing that a lot more and more. So
Yeah.
it's great that BD Tronic is a solution where they provide those solutions kind of in line.
Yeah, because you see the market also asking more and more for the, let's say, the camera checks afterwards to make sure
Yeah,
that gluing applications are being performed correctly, um, which is all possible with nowadays the technologies, and we integrate those into our systems as well. Um, but unfortunately, there's no camera system that can fix the bead afterwards, right? It's you
Yeah.
have to do the application correct first, and then you can measure it with the camera system. Um, so we focus first and foremost to make sure that the dispensing actually is done correctly, rather than focusing on all the camera equipment that detects it afterwards.
Yeah, we get asked a lot to change the color of our materials so the vision system can see the adhesive or whatever material it is that we're applying. So yeah, we're very aware of that.
yeah. UV indicators, the name of our game.
Yeah.
Uh, so I did have a question. I guess we've already kind of touched about the uniqueness of BD Tronic as a whole, right? We've talked to so many companies where they do kind of one of the four quadrants that you're a part of.
Mhm.
And I think BD Tronic is unique in the sense that you touch all of these, which is cool in and of itself. I guess apart from that, are there any emerging technologies or anything specific that BD Tronic is working on that you want people to know about?
Yeah. So you're right. That combination of those four is really is one of the uniquenesses of Bdtronic. The other part of it is our approach to a specific project or problem. Given that we build the machinery, not only just for example the dispensing equipment, we focus on the whole process and the whole project as a whole, not just give somebody a dispensing pump or a heat stick head and then the process has to be figured out afterwards. So a big part of what we do is we bring people together, like for example with HB Fuller and then the actual customer in what we call our technology center, and we will run the material on the our equipment and try to simulate as best as we can what the production system will look like. And the focus really is trying to detail out what this process looks like, what does it need, in order to find out if there's any issues down the road that we don't have to discover when you are bringing equipment online, right? Once you have it
Sure.
online at the customer site, you are relatively late to react to these things. So that's what we're trying to figure out to make sure that the process is detailed out already at the start of the project. And it takes away a lot of risk also for our customers. So we've spent a lot of time and effort together with applications engineers, with our internal chemists, with also all partners involved in order to try and detail out what is actually needed in a project. And that we're able to take that information and translate that really to our equipment and to an automated system. That's a big part of the equation, what we do.
It's a complicated process too. I mean, it's no easy feat. So those have been who have been involved in something like that will realize, there's a lot of work that goes into that, and it's and it takes a well set, a team with great skills to accomplish that.
Yeah, that's so understated, being as
Yeah.
prepared as you possibly can, because
Yeah.
in that startup, always something. There's always a couple of things that go
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it allows us to answer questions that a lot of our customers have. It gives you insight on how the material behaves in the system. It allows you to see what cycle times you can reach, what the specific setups of elastomers have to be. There's so many questions you can answer upfront that you don't have to worry about when you're running the equipment. We just overall just it's such a great benefit, and a lot of our customers have realized it, and that's where we started a lot of the journey with into projects. Plus, you're able to make samples and already A, B, and C samples that are automated. It's not somebody gluing it by hand, so there's a consistency to it that gives you much more valuable information afterwards.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all those details about BD Tronic and all the capabilities that you have. Um, so we're going to jump into our next segment. So it's called Battery Banter. There's no arguing or fighting, don't worry.
There could be,
there
if you want to.
So the road to battery powered everything. Like, so will lithium ion dominate all energy storage? So in lithium ions continue to dominate energy storage across industries, or will emerging alternatives end up winning? So I've been learning a little bit about more about long duration batteries. I was at Intersolar a couple weeks ago and got to talk to a lot of individuals on their technologies and the benefits. And there's a lot of technologies that are emerging and coming out. So I was interested to get your guys' perspective on that.
Yeah, it's so hard, right? Because it's hard to see anything other than lithium ion right now being dominant as lithium ion is right now. But you always have to remember, right? The start of lithium ion happened
Mhm.
decades ago, and only really now is it starting to come to fruition, or at least for the past maybe, 5 to 10 years. So I think all the other ones that we're working on, like solid state, it still has so long to go. But if you look at the progression of lithium ion, you have to imagine that solid state's um, going to have the same progression where it might be 5, 10 years down the line, but it could become the next thing. Um, I don't feel that way about fuel cells. I feel like it's a little bit too way far out there right now, in my opinion. But if I look at some of the other ones, like solid state for sure, I think that's as the closest to catching up with lithium ion, but I don't think it's there yet. Not anytime soon.
Yeah, I know the iron flow too, like those, that's a pretty stable technology. 'Cause I was trying to learn more about, and I'm not, an expert in this, but like the long duration battery, is more for a slow, steady energy stream versus like lithium ions, I believe is a fast dump.
Sure.
So I know that like, the military and other, organizations are looking for, be able to live off the grid for X amount of times during an emergency or a power outage. So it's interesting. I talked to this one person, I can't remember the name of the company, but they're sodium ion. And we had a great conversation, and I was curious and asked him like, well, what's your biggest concern about your batteries? And he's like, well, if there's a hurricane and somebody shoots a gun and through the system and water gets in, because there would be a huge explosion with sodium and water. So I thought that was a very interesting worry to have.
A hurricane and a gunshot.
Yeah. He's like, if there's a hurricane and somebody shoots a gun through the system. And I
Oh
was like,
man. Maybe in Oklahoma, well, no, not a hurricane. Sorry, maybe in Oklahoma, but no, that tornado. I don't. Maybe that
Yeah.
doesn't have the same effect. Maybe where you're.
Well, it could throw all kinds of debris through a battery and then throw some water on it with rain. So that's in principle a possibility. But then I guess if it's a home storage system or something like that, you could also just put that underground. So for every problem, there's a solution. But yeah, the chemistries are very interesting topic that's going to go everywhere. I think that over the years we'll see developments that are much more specific towards the applications, where you do see lithium ion is currently basically everywhere, from bicycle batteries to home storage to vehicles and anything in between. But I do think that you'll see development over time that specializes for different applications. It's just, yes, the lithium ion battery is relatively speaking old, but the developments are also new, that I think we're just at the beginning of what this technology can do. And if we look forward to what you already mentioned, the solid state batteries, and I think we just have a interesting future ahead still with all this development. And there's so many people spending so much time, energy, and effort in coming up with better chemistries and solutions that it's bound to diversify.
Yeah, I think it's good to get ahead of it too, right? Supply chain is going to have eventually demand that we do find alternatives. Lithium is a finite resource, so. But when that happens, it's still not clear to me. But I feel like you said, when we're still kind of at the forefront of utilizing lithium ion and all of the things we can do with it. So I feel like we have a good ways to go. It's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's such a dynamic market. It depends on, even the application, if it's a satellite, then maybe, you have to stay with lithium ion, there's not a lot of the room. But I think for the large energy storage, there's definitely technologies out there um, that can be sustainable. They have the Form Energy has that iron. It's more of a rust kind of platform where they convert rust back into energy. And then, there's Vanadium. I'm not too familiar with the Vanadium flow batteries. I did talk to one company that was organic flow, which didn't learn too much about that. The guy was new, so but there's a lot of them out there. There was, some interesting conversations to be had. So I think we'll see a lot more. I think that's my point.
I did have a conversation with someone at TSA. I was carrying a fake battery cell to go to a trade show, and I thought I was going to get the full works. I thought I wasn't going to make my flight, but instead he just pulled me aside to tell me about the viability of hemp batteries. He was like, it's coming. And so let's not forget about that one.
That's funny you say that, because I had a fake 4680 in my backpack that I completely forgot about. And I had gone back and forth in the airport. I was flying back, and I think I was at LAX, and they pulled me aside and pulled it out. And I was like, oh, I forgot I mean, I had been going through the airport this entire time
Yeah.
with it. It completely didn't remember it. And they were like, rubbing it down and testing it. And I was like, it's not real. It's fake. All right. Well, that was a good conversation. Thanks for giving your insight on that.
Yeah, thank you. So I think with that, it was a great conversation, as Elizabeth said. That's all the time that we have for today. So Wim, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking with you, learning about BD Tronic. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on the podcast.
Of course. And so join us next month for another episode of the Battery Buzz podcast. We will have a special guest, Dustin Grace. He's the CEO of Estes Energy, and he's going to join us to discuss how they are changing the battery industry. So looking forward to that one.
So if you have any comments or questions on today's discussion, feel free to comment or give us your insights. Please subscribe, like, follow, and check out our electrical battery adhesives page on LinkedIn. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.